Good morning. This is Britiany A. Christian from Britiany A. Christian Presents, and I was going to read to you chapter 3. I was going to go out by the lilies. We have a beautiful abundance of lilies in our middle patch of garden, but I think I'll just stay right here. This is my porch, and I'm sitting in my wheelchair. Ooh. But anyway, I just wanted to remind you, line of confusion, Chronicle 1 of the ABIS, Britiany A. Christian, and this is the back. And there's me, probably a year ago or two. Well, not quite a year ago or two, but anyway, my kitty spilt milk on my copy, so I might have a little problem with the pages. But I'm going to go ahead and start. Oh, wait a minute, I better read that copyright thing. All scriptures contained herein are from the Old and New Testaments of the authorized King James Version of the Bible. All photos and text copyright 2013 by Britiany A. Christian, all rights reserved. Rysville Publishers, a division of Rysville Ventures, edition 2, March 2014. If you want to get your copy, you can go to Amazon.com and get a copy of Line of Confusion and read along with me. I noticed that I put some free ones out. Every 3 months we get to give away copies of the Kindle. And 20 of you, or 20 copies, were given away. So thank you. I love you, my dear viewers. Don't have any subscriptions yet, but I do have 363 views. So I appreciate you. I think I've got 1 like. Thank you. Okay, let's get on with this. Oh, Stripey, did you want to say hello? My outdoor kitty is walking around. She's got some kittens under the house. But she's the only one left of 3. A few years ago, there was a litter, and she's the only one left. And of course, we're excited for her kittens. And okay, chapter 3, it has been prophesied, you know. After church, Abigail and Rose were milling about with the other folk, trying to look for a cool place to stand. Rose suddenly saw the new neighbor and started waving and hollering at him. "Oh, Joshua, Joshua, yoo-hoo," Rose continued, as Abigail tried to hush her. "Rose, stop. Everyone is looking," Abigail begged her. As he looked over to them, Joshua's face broke into a big smile as he sauntered over to Abigail and Rose. "Good afternoon, ladies. How wonderful to see you." His smile lingered on Abigail as he spoke. Abby's cheeks flamed bright pink. "Just as I thought," smiled Rose to herself. "Oh, Pastor, I want to introduce myself. I'm Rose Fontaine, and this is my sister, Abigail Bennett." "Welcome to our lovely little town," said Rose, as she smiled up at him. Just call me Joshua. And thank you. I'm beginning to love this little town of yours. And we've met, Joshua said, smiling at Abigail. You remember at the hardware store? I told you I was your new neighbor. And I bought the old Miller place, and we talked for a moment. He smiled a devastating smile at Abigail. Abigail nodded as her eyes briefly held his, and she mused to herself, I hadn't noticed how kind his eyes are. I was wondering if you would like to come to dinner at the house, queried Rose. We are having a wonderful roasted lamb with all the trimmings, and we would love to have you over. Rose did not dare to look at Abigail's direction, or she knew she would lose her smile and her nerve. She could almost feel the heat of Abigail's horror at what she had done, but she kept her cool. Well, I would love to, Joshua said, smiling again at both of them. Would an hour be too soon? Said Rose. She's a little Dickens, isn't she? No, said Joshua, looking pleased as punch. Not at all. I'll be there. Abigail and Rose arrived home as fast as they could to check on the food and found that it was doing really well. The lamb was perfectly cooked and the whole house smelled wonderful. They started to prepare the table for Joshua to come and eat with them when suddenly they heard the doorbell ring. Hurry, get the door, Abigail, said Rose. But Rose, pleaded Abigail, I don't want to go to the door. Go, Abigail, and let him in, said Rose firmly in her older sister voice. There was an 8-year difference between them in their age, and Rose often assumed the role of the older and wiser of the two. Abigail mustered up her courage and went to the door. As she opened it, she saw Joshua standing there with the biggest smile on his face when he saw Abigail in her soft pastel green summer dress. Wow, is this lady gorgeous or what? He thought to himself, just like a guy. Oh, Joshua, come in, said Abigail demurely. Joshua sauntered into the lovely room and looked around in admiration. A huge white stone fireplace was on one end, and in the middle of the room was a large bay window with a window seat. There were beautiful, elegant coverings on the windows in a soft blue with flowers and blue sheer curtains. Joshua was impressed as he inwardly whistled. This was a lovely old home and was wonderfully furnished with beautiful oil paintings and antiques everywhere. He went over to a painting to look at it. He was sure he could make out the name Abigail on it. Mystery. Sit down, said Abigail. Dinner will be ready in a moment. I will be right back. He watched the lovely woman in her sleeveless chiffon dress walk back into the kitchen. He felt foolish when he realized his heart was pounding. Well, he couldn't help it that she was gorgeous, and it elicited such a response from him. He was, after all, a man, and she was very much a beautiful woman. Joshua situated himself on a lovely, soft blue sofa. Next to it was an antique curio cabinet in cherry wood, filled with every kind of lovely trinkets, little crystal animals, and pretty delicate decorations filled the generous cabinet. There were flowers on the coffee table from the garden that were beautiful and smelled wonderful. Joshua felt completely at home in this room. Please, said Abigail. as she appeared again. As she appeared again once more. Come and sit down. Everything is ready. The dining room was impressive with a huge oak table and many chairs around it. It was set with fine china, crystal glassware, and sterling silver on linen napkins. It looked like a room that could be used to entertain dignitaries. He said as much as they put him at the head of the table when he sat down. Oh, Daddy was an attorney and was always entertaining. Mommy was the talk of the town with her wonderful dinner parties. Those were the days, weren't they, Abigail? Rose exclaimed as she beamed at Joshua. Abigail then told Joshua about her parents and their background of her dad being quite an excellent attorney in his day. He often entertained governors and senators and other dignitaries, Abigail told him softly, not wanting to sound as proud as she felt. I'm sorry about the noise. We live next to a main highway, Main Street. Rose scurried back and forth, putting luscious dishes on the beautifully arranged table as they talked. The smell from the food made him ravenous. He didn't realize how hungry he was until he smelled the crown roast of lamb that was sitting on the table. There was also roasted potatoes, garden fresh green beans, a lovely salad with fresh garden tomatoes and Bibb lettuce, and wonderful fresh homemade bread with creamery, butter, and mint jelly. Joshua was so happy to be sitting here, but what made him most happy was the lovely lady that sat next to him. She was incredibly beautiful, and he never thought he could ever be in the presence of someone as lovely as she was. Rose, on the other side of him, asked him to say grace. As he prayed with their heads bowed, Joshua felt in his spirit that God had brought him to this place for a specific reason. He does that. And he believed that Abigail was a part of the reason. We should never give up on life. We should always know God has a plan B. He wanted to reach out and touch her hand as he prayed, but he knew he couldn't do that. She didn't know him, but he felt in his spirit that she was the kind of lovely woman that he could spend the rest of his life with. After dinner, Rose and Abigail invited Joshua out to the cobblestone patio. There were stone planters all over the patio with a riot of gorgeous flowers in bloom. Rose brought out iced tea and soft butter cookies for them to enjoy. The afternoon was still, with not a breath of wind. Joshua looked out at all the lovely trees, flowers, and hedges. It almost seemed a paradise. He gazed at the carefully laid cobbled walkways all the way to the edge of the acreage. There were low, hand-laid rock walls and decorative concrete streets, as well as lattice gazebos set all over the garden. There was a beautiful fountain in the middle of the garden that splashed invitingly for someone to come, sit, and enjoy. There was even grassed areas that you could take a blanket and some picnic lunch and enjoy the afternoon. Doesn't that just sound so lovely? I've seen homes like that. Wherever we lived in my hometown, they had some beautiful homes that we used to, my mom and I would take a walk around the block, their blocks, and they were gorgeous. Such beautiful homes with beautiful gardens. Why don't you and Abigail take a walk in the garden, suggested Rose. She can show you her handiwork. She is such a whiz at gardening. Abigail blushed at Rose's extravagant compliment, as she looked at the tall man sitting next to her. She watched him guardedly under her eyelashes. He had wavy black hair with just the beginnings of a little gray and a strong, manly face. His piercing brown eyes seemed to look deep into her soul. She almost always looked away when he looked into her eyes. She had never met anyone who openly studied her the way he did. He really was quite a handsome man. He was tall and muscular, as though he was used to hard work and enjoyed it. He was a mystery man. He was a mystery man, though. He looked as though he worked outdoors all of his life, and yet he was a pastor. "Why don't you come with us, Rose?" asked Abigail. "No," Rose answered. "I have to go in and put things away in the kitchen. But you both go out and enjoy the garden." As they walked down the pathways, Abigail pointed out roses, flowers, and different plants and gave their names. Joshua was amused and impressed because he didn't know any of the names of the flowers and plants like Abigail. They sat down in one of the gazebos covered in beautiful, fragrant pink flowers in a well-shaded area close to the edge of the property. He resisted an urge to pull off one of the flowers and give it to her, not knowing if that would upset her to desecrate the perfectness of the city. "Abigail, this is the loveliest place I've ever seen," Joshua said in admiration, and then queried, "Did you do this all by yourself?" "My parents did a lot of it in their retirement years with the help of their gardeners. They worked very hard and made it as lovely as it is now. I simply have taken it and then added more to the already beautiful work that they did." They sat in silence for a moment, enjoying the cool of the evening and the scenery. Abigail suddenly asked, "What did you think about the pastor's subject matter?" "I have actually been studying about the same thing," Joshua answered. "I really truly believe that what he says is right. The abyss is a very dangerous machine. The way Babylon has sprung up out of nowhere, just like in Revelation, is nothing short of astounding. I don't know if you ever read in Genesis 11 about the Tower of Babel." Abigail nodded her head in affirmation, and he went on. "Nimrod wanted to build a tower that reached to heaven so that a flood would never touch them again. And when God saw that this was happening," my kitty spilled milk on my book. "God said, 'Let us go down there and see what they are doing.' And God saw and said, 'If we don't stop them now, nothing will be impossible to them.' And that is why he confused their language and why it is called the Tower of Babel. He scattered the people, and the tower building was stopped." Joshua paused for a moment and then went on. "But now in Babylon, the same thing is happening. They have built the abyss on the same spot as the tower. There has to be a very good reason for that. I think that they believe that they can open up what can only be called a wormhole in today's terms that God used to cast Satan and his angels out of heaven to the earth. And they are looking for it there. They truly believe that Satan and his angels were cast out of heaven down to earth in the same place where the tower building remnants still exist today. So that is why they built the machine there, and I believe they're onto something with that idea. Right now, there are thousands of scientists with one common language, the computer. They have already made such progress in trying to tear into the very fabric of the universe. They are convinced they have found the particle that God uses to create the universe. If God doesn't stop them with tribulation, As it says in Revelation, nothing will be impossible to them. They are using every kind of wicked occult work that has been used against God from the beginning of the world. They've already accomplished much and have already caused chaos all over the world. They're actually tearing the earth apart with earthquakes, tornadoes, volcanic eruptions, hurricanes, tsunamis, every time they turn it on higher. It is the most dangerous and foolish thing that they are doing, trying to circumvent God, trying to be gods themselves. With the discovery of what they think to be the God particle, which is what they believe that God uses to create the universe, they believe it will let them go from one planet to another across the universe. They believe they can do anything they want to do without dying and without God. Abigail watched as Joshua spoke with such authority and such passion. She had read quite a bit about the abyss and knew what was happening in Babylon. She was very curious about it, and had often wished that she and Rose could go visit and see this machine that they were creating. But so far, they were not able to go anywhere. They were trying to take care of the house and the grounds, and they didn't seem to have much time to travel. Maybe someday soon, thought Abigail, she and Rose could take a trip to Israel and then on to Babylon and see what all this commotion was about. When Abigail and Joshua walked back to the house, Joshua took his leave of them. "This was wonderful. Thank you so much for inviting me," he said to the ladies. "Come by any time to visit us," Rose invited, as she noticed Abigail blush once more. "We love having company, don't we, Abigail? Come over any time." "Why, thank you," said Joshua. "I might just do that." He grinned at Abigail as his eyes softly held hers, and then he left. Rose sat down with Abigail in one of the comfortable patio chairs. "Are you really upset with me for inviting Joshua to dinner?" Abigail smiled and leaned back in her chair. She loosened the knot of her hair on top of her head and let its blonde loveliness cascade over her shoulders. "Oh, Rose, he's a lovely man. I'm really glad he agreed to come because it gave me a chance to get to know him a little bit better. He's a very educated man, and I enjoyed talking to him. But I am worried about all the talk about the abyss. It frightens me that this machine can cause so much havoc and chaos throughout the world. Joshua thinks that they will find a wormhole, if they haven't already, to go wherever they want to go. Wherever they do go, they will think it's a different planet. But Joshua believes, as the pastors does, that they will think they're somewhere else in the universe, when in fact they will open up the abyss, talked about in Revelation. They will open up the abyss and not some other exotic planet like they think. What worries me is that the people that are running this machine act as though nothing is happening when they turn it on. They seem oblivious to the fact that they're causing all this harm to the earth. Or maybe they just don't really care. To them, it's a means to an end, to become like gods. Rose shook her head in exasperation at this statement, and Abigail continued. Joshua also quoted Revelation 9, which says that a star fell from heaven and that the key to the abyss was given to him. He believes, like the pastor, that the star is Satan himself. He really believes this machine is the key and that they will be opening up the very trenches of hell. Rose was thoughtful. "This is most fascinating to me. I'd like to see this machine and solve the mystery of it," she said to Abigail. "I know, dear. But right now we are so busy, we just don't have time to take an extended trip, Abigail said with a slight frown on her face. Maybe someday, yes. I would love to see Israel. That is something I've wanted to do my whole life, said Rose. But now it seems that we are so busy that we don't have time to go anywhere. Besides, with all the unrest there, I wonder how safe a trip there would be. The peace agreement seems so tentative. It's all right, Rose. Someday we will go, and someday God will make a way for us to take a trip, and we will be safe. God will make sure of that, said Abigail emphatically in faith as she took a sip of her tea. Okay, that's the end of chapter 3. The next chapter is chapter 4, and it's losses and casualties. I wonder what that means. I hope you stay tuned for chapter 4. I don't know exactly when I will be dropping the video, but keep tuned. And please subscribe. And press your like button and notification button. Okay, dears. This old grandma will see you again. Or great grandma. All right. I love you guys. Bye-bye.